The DPM giving an update on the Hilton, the Minister of Education on diagnostic testing, and the media having an extremely difficult time interviewing ministers this morning. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tyler Simonet with your JCN News for this Tuesday, February 1st. China Construction America, the owners of the British colonial Hilton, continue to actively speak with other potential brands and management companies for that property. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism, Investments and Aviation Chester Cooper tells reporters this much this morning, while adding that if they are able to secure a new management company swiftly, the closure period could be very short.
So we are hopeful that it works out that way, and we will remain in touch with the owners of the property as their partners. They are committed to the Bahamas. They are also owners of other hotel properties nearby, and we continue to be in active dialogue with them.
He adds once CCA is able to find a new management company, it's very likely that the company will recall most or all of the Hilton's employees when the hotel reopens.
They will still need employees to run the property, so really to solve the issue they need a manager, a brand, a network that they can draw on and get guests to come to the property. And then, of course, the jobs will be available for the qualified applicants. I won't speak for them, but I am satisfied that they would recall some or most of the employees should that outcome happen.
No timeline was given by the DPM as he explains this is a private matter between the owners of the property and potential new brands, and it is not something that the government has direct control over. With public schools across the country back to hybrid learning for just 1 week, the Education, Technical and Vocational Training Minister Glenys Hanna-Martin telling reporters that she's grateful that students are back in schools, while giving an update on the diagnostic testing, which will give the ministry a better understanding of the learning loss that students in the public school system may have faced during the COVID-19 pandemic. The question now is, when will the testing be rolled out?
Yes, I've asked them to accelerate. We've been exploring a number of approaches. We want to do it right. It has to be culturally correct. And so, and there are some domestic, local testing the Ministry of Education has. But we're also looking, though, to do something a little more complex in terms of the additional programs for accelerated learning. And so I wouldn't want to give a timeline except to say I have asked that it be accelerated so that it can be implemented as soon as possible.
Minister Hanna-Martin noting that during a sideline interview just before a walkabout in the community of the E.P. Roberts Primary School, that education officials are minded that it has been a traumatic 2 years for students and that officials don't bombard them with tests. However, the testing will come with an effective plan.
That the loss is not just learning, it's in some instances it's psychological. This has been a tough time for young people. So we have to strategically time the diagnostic testing to ensure that children are able to move smoothly into it and not feel like another sort of pressure on them.
Minister Hanna-Martin also updating reporters on national examinations, which you may remember last year, both the Bahamas Junior Certificate and the Bahamas General Certificate of Secondary Education were delayed due to a spike in COVID-19 cases. Here's what the minister has to say about that.
I've asked the Director of Education to advise us on that. That will have to take into consideration a number of items. It's a mixed bag because there are some people who have fared well on the virtual reality, and they want to go to university and all of that. And then there are others who have paid a high price during this time. So we have to find the right approach to ensure that every child's specific needs are met in this process.
Overall, Minister Hanna-Martin says that she's waiting to get the go-ahead from health officials to have students back in the classroom full-time. New security protocols at the Office of the Prime Minister made it extremely difficult for the press to conduct interviews this morning ahead of the weekly cabinet meeting. With the details, we go to our Leah Cooper.
Traffic cones have been set up here at the Office of the Prime Minister preventing press from attempting to get interviews with cabinet ministers. This, according to Press Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Clint Watson, is new protocols for cabinet meetings that are set to take place here from now on. In a meeting with the press, Mr. Watson explained that interviews for cabinet will be conducted in the press room at the office of the Prime Minister moving forward. Similarly to what takes place on Thursdays at OPM, media will also be required to communicate through the press secretary which ministers they wish to interview and provide questions to Mr. Watson prior to the start of cabinet meeting at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays. Mr. Watson then went on to explain that no cabinet minister is obligated to give an interview with the press or inform the press of where cabinet will take place, as it's a closed meeting. This move follows many criticisms by the now Progressive Liberal Party government of the former minister-led administration and its treatment of the press. In opposition, Prime Minister Philip Davis called on the Prime Minister at the time to take more questions from the press rather than, quote, hide behind national addresses. Just last week, the media was also prohibited from asking Prime Minister Davis questions surrounding his admission of breaking quarantine after announcing to the nation that he would be doing so. Also, in an op-ed featured in the Tribune newspaper last year, Mr. Watson is quoted saying, quote, the fourth estate is a partner of governance and should be treated as such. He added that, quote, we have a partnership, which means you have to be accountable to us, to respond to us just how you are when you want to call on us to cover your events or highlight yourself. You ought to be doing the same thing when it comes to us taking questions to get clarity and information.
Those reporters out there doing their job, they're told to cover a story. They're trying to get your side. You know why they're trying to get your side? Because the minute they don't ask you and they only report the nurse's side, you're going to call them biased. And you're going to go up in the House Assembly and shame the reporters and say, oh, no one spoke to us about it. So reporters are trying to balance their stories by getting your side of the story. But instead, you insult them. You insult them. But these are the same reporters who in a couple of weeks, your people are going to be calling them, trying to get you giving away Mother's Day roses in your constituency. These are going to be the same people you calling. Can you send a news crew? The minister is going to be in his constituency and he's going to be donating 2 tablets, which cost $50 each. That's what y'all do. That's what y'all do. Y'all be going to calling our phones day in, day out for us to come follow y'all, do some presentation, to do some PR in your constituency. But when our reporters come out to the beat to get you to answer and be accountable to the people, you want to slam a door in their face? Call here again, ask us to cover y'all. Call back.
Reporting for JCN News, I'm Leah Cooper.
Now, in response, the Office of the Prime Minister, in a statement this afternoon to newsroom editors, attempted to explain that the Royal Bahamas Defence Force has the responsibility of ensuring the security of the many people who work in the OPM building, adding that those orange cones, which acted as a barricade to limit the reporters' access to the ministers, are in place every day as a part of the RBDF security practices. That said, the OPM's press secretary has invited reporters to send in requests in advance so that the ministers can be made available, and invited the reporters to use the press briefing room instead of the parking lot, as the entrance to the building is a way to allow access to ministers without disrupting a very busy workplace. The Central Bank of the Bahamas giving an update on the sand dollar. The technical framework for the Bahamas digital currency is near completion. This much coming from Governor of the Central Bank of the Bahamas, John Roll, during the quarterly economic briefing.
Insofar as the sand dollar is concerned, a lot of our focus in the last month has been in completing our technical work on integrating the sand dollar with the banking system platform so that mobile wallets can have the two-way connectivity with deposit accounts. That work is nearing the completion. Right now, the central bank is recruiting additional persons to begin a very intensive outreach to the business community and to coordinate further with commercial banks and other providers of payment services.
Governor Roll says that this outreach will result in increasing the sand dollar's visibility during the first half of the year, as they will prepare positive incentives for businesses. He noted that Family Island consumers will be heavily targeted. He also gives an update on the current state of the sand dollar since its launch.
In terms of the size and current impact of the stand dollar in the economy, we haven't had a shift relative to where we were in the third and the fourth quarter. Now we are laying the foundation to begin that push. And as I said, the most important part of that is readying the businesses to become enrolled. And that's an initiative that we are pushing this quarter, and allowing the connectivity to be completed with between Sand Dollar Wallet and deposit accounts. That too is something that is concluding this quarter.
The launch of the pilot phase in December 2019 marked the start of the Sand Dollar project by the Central Bank of the Bahamas. The Sand Dollar, a digital version of the Bahamian dollar, was officially launched in October of 2020, issued through authorized financial institutions. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.